So, Avi Loeb just released new information about 3I ATS today, and we've officially identified the 12th anomaly of this object. And honestly, this might be the weirdest one yet, because the math we've relied on for over 100 years completely fails to explain what we're seeing. Loeb has 3 possible explanations for why this is happening, but before we get into those, let's break down what this newest anomaly actually is. 7 different telescopes measured how fast 3I ATS rotates, and we ended up with an extremely precise value. It completes one full rotation every 16.16 hours. These measurements were repeated several times between July and August, and every observation gave us the exact same result. Now, in a previous video, we talked about the November 9th images showing that the object is blasting out massive jets of gas, stretching millions of kilometers into space. Based on the speed that gas is moving, Loeb calculated that it takes about 1 full month for the gas to travel from the surface of the object all the way out to the end of these jets. And here's where everything falls apart. During those 30 days of travel, how many times does 3I ATS spin? Well, if it rotates once every 16.16 hours, that's roughly 1.5 rotations per day. Over 30 days, that comes out to around 45 full spins. Now, according to basic physics, when a rotating object in space ejects material, that material should spread out as the object keeps turning. The gas continues on a straight path while the object rotates beneath it, so the jets should smear out into broad, fuzzy spirals pointing in different directions. That's exactly what we see with normal comets, but that's not what we're seeing here. The images of 3I ATS show jets that look like laser beams, sharp, narrow, and perfectly aligned. They do not fan out, they do not spiral, they point in one specific direction and stay that way across 1 million kilometers of space. And that simply should not be physically possible if the object is spinning 45 times while the gas is in motion. Another thing I want to point out, because nobody seems to be talking about this, is that just a few days before these images were taken, we had another set of observations showing no jets at all. No tails, nothing. And honestly, that's an anomaly on its own. But let's not drift away from the 12th anomaly here. So remember how I said Avi Loeb has 3 theories? Well, there are actually 4. I just don't agree with the 4th one. Alright, let me walk you through each theory and why every single one of them runs into problems. Theory 1 says maybe the rotation of 3I ATS dramatically slowed down since July. If the object is barely spinning now, the jets wouldn't get smeared out by rotation. Sounds simple, but there's a major issue. When gas vents unevenly from a comet, it actually increases the comet's rotation speed, not slows it down. On top of that, we have images from November 11th showing the object still intact and behaving normally. As far as we know, nothing catastrophic happened that could have suddenly changed its spin rate, so theory 1 doesn't hold up. Theory 2 focuses on the object's surface. Maybe it has deep valleys surrounded by tall mountains, and the ice sits at the bottom. As the object rotates, those mountains block sunlight most of the time, but once per rotation, the angle lines up perfectly. Sunlight hits the ice, it heats up, and gas blasts out, then it goes dark again. That would produce jets that pulse on and off every 16 hours instead of spraying continuously. Here's the problem. If the jets pulse every 16 hours and the gas takes a full month to travel outward, then the jets should look like separate puffs, little bursts spaced out like beads on a string. But that's not what we see. The observations show smooth, uninterrupted jets, not dozens of individual pulses, so theory 2 collapses as well. Theory 3 suggests maybe the object actually broke apart and we're looking at long debris trails instead of active jets. But we've already confirmed the object didn't fragment. It's still a single piece. Unless the images were processed incorrectly, which is extremely unlikely, this theory doesn't work either. Now, before we get to Loeb's 4th theory, I want you to remember something. This is not the first impossible thing about 3I ATS, not the second, not the 5th. This is number 12. The object contains way more nickel than any known comet. It has only 4% water, when comets are supposed to be mostly ice. Its polarization readings don't match anything we've ever measured. It came from nearly the exact same direction as the famous 1977 wow signal. It brightened faster than any comet in recorded history, and it reflects light in ways that match no natural object we've ever studied. Every time scientists think they found a normal explanation, the next observation completely destroys it. Here's something almost nobody is talking about, and honestly, it might be just as important as the jet anomaly itself. If 3I ATS really is an ancient interstellar object, then it has been traveling through deep space for billions of years. Out there, away from stars, away from heat wells, away from gravity wells, objects don't behave the way we're used to. They experience cosmic radiation levels we can't even replicate in our labs. Their chemical structures age differently. Their surfaces get altered on timescales longer than the entire history of human civilization. So imagine something drifting through that environment for eons, unchanged, untouched, accumulating a history written in elements we barely understand. When that kind of object finally enters our solar system, we shouldn't expect it to follow our rules. Maybe the jets are acting strange because this material isn't like comet ice at all. Maybe its crust has layers of exotic compounds that release energy in ways we've never seen before. Or maybe the internal pressure builds over incredibly long periods, creating bursts that behave more like engineered systems than natural outgassing. There's also another possibility. What if the object isn't just old, but preserved? What if something about its composition prevents erosion, prevents fragmentation, prevents heat damage? That would explain why it's still intact despite traveling through interstellar space for unimaginable distances. And if that's true, then studying it could answer one of the biggest questions in science: whether nature can create structures that mimic artificial behavior, or whether artificial behavior is the only explanation left on the table. Every new observation brings us closer to a point where either physics evolves or history does. At first, it looked like a normal comet. Then the data came in showing almost no water. Okay, maybe it was a dry comet, except the polarization readings came back completely wrong. So maybe it was an asteroid. But asteroids don't produce jets stretching millions of kilometers into space. Every answer creates three new questions. And now we have the rotation problem. These jets are doing something that basic physics says they should not be able to do. Right now, scientists are using spectrographs to figure out exactly what's inside those jets and how fast the material is actually moving. This data is crucial because it will tell us whether we're dealing with normal comet gases or something entirely different. If the results show water vapor and carbon dioxide shooting out at around 1,400 kilometers per hour, then maybe there's some natural explanation we simply haven't thought of yet. Maybe there's a strange kind of ancient interstellar ice behaving in a way we've never seen before because we've never studied an object this old from outside our solar system. But if those measurements come back weird, if the gas is moving too fast, if the composition doesn't match sun-heated ice, or the amount of mass being ejected is impossible for an object this size, then the natural explanations are going to be in serious trouble. And that brings us to Avi Loeb's fourth theory. What if these jets aren't melting ice at all? What if they're actually technological thrusters? Think about how spacecraft operate. When a spacecraft fires its thrusters, they point in very specific directions on purpose. Even if the spacecraft itself is tumbling or rotating, the thruster system maintains its orientation relative to space, not relative to the spinning body. That means the thrust always pushes in the intended direction, no matter how its craft is turning at that moment. If 3I ATS has some kind of propulsion system, it would perfectly explain why the jets stay locked in the same directions, even while the object rotates 45 times. The thruster system would simply fire at the correct moments to keep the overall thrust vector stable. This is exactly the kind of system you'd need if you were trying to navigate through space. In the next few weeks, we're getting new spectroscopy data that will tell us exactly what's inside those jets, and we're also getting velocity measurements and mass loss calculations. If the data shows normal comet behavior, then scientists will have to figure out what natural mechanism could keep those jets perfectly straight despite 45 full rotations. And honestly, that alone would be a major physics breakthrough. But if the measurements come back showing something that solar heating cannot produce, wrong composition, wrong speeds, or impossible amounts of mass, then the natural explanations are going to be in serious trouble. But if the measurements come back showing something that solar heating cannot produce, wrong composition, wrong speeds, or impossible amounts of mass, then we might be looking at the first object in human history that doesn't fit within our current understanding of how the universe works. Either way, what we're seeing right now should not be possible. And whatever the answer is, it's going to change everything. If you made it to the end, let me know which theory you think makes the most sense. Or if you've got a theory of your own, drop it in the comments. Hit the like button, and I wish you a blessed day.